What's going on, y'all? This is John with Facemask Fantasy, and news just dropped. Some bombshell news that Allen Robinson is going to be signing a 3-year deal with the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this is completely out of left field for me. I did not see this happening. I thought Allen Robinson would maybe go to the Patriots. The Rams were never on my radar because not only do they have Cooper Kupp, who was the best wide receiver in the league by far last season and had one of the best, if not the best, fantasy wide receiver season of all time, but they have Robert Woods, who was the wide receiver 16 before going down with an ACL tear just last season and was a perennial high-end wide receiver 2, if not wide receiver 1, throughout his tenure as an LA Rams / St. Louis Ram. Not only that, but the Rams were expected to re-sign Odell Beckham Jr., who sustained a ACL tear in the Super Bowl just a few months ago. They were expected to retain him and have him back at some point in November of 2022. And they have Van Jefferson, who is a young up-and-coming wide receiver. But now it looks like they're adding Allen Robinson, who, after 2 years being the wide receiver 12 overall in all of fantasy, fell off last year due to quarterback change, issues with the head coach. He's only 28 years old, will be 29 at some point in time this year. So he's not young, but he's not old. And it's fair to say that Matt Stafford will be the best quarterback that Allen Robinson has ever played with. So Allen Robinson goes from somebody who you could have probably gotten for a late second-round pick, and I'm kind of kicking myself that I did not offer any of my late seconds for Allen Robinson in any dynasty leagues that I'm in, but you're probably looking at around a first-round value for him now, is what you'd probably have to pay to get Allen Robinson, considering you probably couldn't have picked a better landing spot from a production standpoint. Both the secondary and tertiary wide receivers in this offense are coming back from ACL tears, so Allen Robinson goes from being an afterthought in Chicago to being, again, a candidate for being a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy. This is huge news. Not only is this news for Allen Robinson owners, this is news for Matt Stafford owners. This is huge. Matt Stafford has basically played with Alpha X wide receivers his entire career, going back to Calvin Johnson and Kenny Golladay. Now, Allen Robinson is not Calvin Johnson. Nobody is. But he compares very favorably to the same type of wide receiver that Kenny Golladay was for Matt Stafford, who was a wide receiver 1 when Matt Stafford was playing with him in Detroit. Matt Stafford can sustain 2 wide receiver 1s in fantasy football. And I think that's what we're going to have in 2022 with this Rams offense in Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson. Now, the waters will get muddied to a certain extent when some of these other injured players, if they even come back, because Odell Beckham hasn't been re-signed by the Rams, he's just been linked there. So this deal with Allen Robinson could end the speculation that Odell Beckham Jr. will return to the Rams at any point in time in 2022 after suffering that ACL tear in the Super Bowl. But this move puts Matt Stafford back on the high-end QB1 map. This honestly helps Cooper Kupp to a certain extent because he won't be the sole focus of any opposing defense he's playing against, because the team will have to account for Allen Robinson, even if the team doesn't go out and re-sign Odell Beckham Jr. And it makes it so that the Rams don't have to put so much emphasis on Robert Woods in their offensive game plan moving forward, because he himself is coming back from an ACL tear. And while an ACL tear is not nearly the career ender it used to be, for an aging wide receiver like Robert Woods, who will be 30 this year, it could sap him of some of his athleticism and lead to him not being the fantasy receiver that he even was just last season when he was wide receiver 16 in half PPR formats before sustaining the ACL tear. So this is huge news. The rich just get richer. I believe this is good news for everybody involved. It helps Matt Stafford. It obviously helps Allen Robinson because he'll be catching passes from the best quarterback that he's ever caught passes from, and he will be in the best offense he's ever been in, top to bottom. This helps Cooper Kupp because opposing defenses will not be able to focus solely on him when attacking this offense on a weekly basis. Allen Robinson in this offense will be working on the outside, and his presence on the outside will benefit the entire offense. It will benefit the receivers that are working underneath, the Tyler Higbees, the Van Jeffersons. The only player that this is really bad for, outside of Odell Beckham, whom now might not get signed by the Rams altogether, it's Robert Woods. This Rams team is not a team that can afford to wait on a player like Robert Woods to get better. They need to go out and win right now while their window is open. They just won a Super Bowl. Their window is probably sometime within the next 1 to 2 seasons. So getting Allen Robinson in here now at the expense of a Robert Woods is the smart thing to do from an NFL perspective. Now, it might not feel too great for your Robert Woods shares, but that's just the nature of the beast. Again, this move is not on my radar at all. I doubt it was on anybody's radar. Again, I thought Allen Robinson was a dead ringer to be going to the Patriots, but that is not the case. Blockbuster move for the LA Rams. They're obviously trying to run it back and make it to another Super Bowl, and I don't think you should be afraid of investing in any of these Rams players in fantasy for the 2022 season. And while your chance at getting Allen Robinson on the cheap probably just closed, if the Allen Robinson owner in your league truly believes he is washed and believes this is a veteran signing that will not amount to anything, pounce now, because I would put very good money on Allen Robinson being a top 12 or a borderline top 12 wide receiver by season's end next year. But what do you guys think about this signing of Allen Robinson going to the Rams? Put your thoughts in the comment section below, or better yet, join us on one of our weekly live streams. We hold live streams every Tuesday and every Thursday through the offseason at 6 p.m. EST. So come in, throw your questions about Allen Robinson or any player in the NFL into the chat, and we can have a direct conversation about it. But my name is John. This is Facemask Fantasy, bringing you new fantasy content almost every day. Thank you for listening and have a great one.